I'm Kevin Mims with the Invading Sea, Florida-wide media collaborative that reports on climate change in the state. As part of that effort, we've started The Business of Climate Change, a weekly interview with businessmen and women whose companies are either affected by the warming climate or address climate challenges. Today's conversation is with Dan Linblade, President and CEO of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce and Chairman of the Housing Authority of the City of Fort Lauderdale. Dan, thanks for taking some time to talk with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Kevin. I look forward to the conversation. Thanks for the invitation.
So, Dan, from your view, how has climate change affected South Florida so far?
That's a big open-ended question, Kevin. There's so many ways we could take that. Really from the business, and I'll address it from the business perspective, engagement, I guess, and education has been critical for the business community to really understand what the short, medium, and long-range impacts are for us to not engage on climate change issues and mitigation. It happened about 5 years ago. I was invited to a luncheon at the Diplomat and really didn't know all that much about climate change, heard about sea level rise, global warming, all this stuff, but really didn't know what that meant other than, we could have some flooding. Learned a lot about it at that meeting, what the future looks like if we don't act, if we don't have mitigation. And at that point, I said, this is too big of an issue for the over $1 trillion of investments that we have up and down the coast. And there's too much at risk. So as a chamber, I created what I call a legacy position for us so that I'll never finish it in the time I have left here with the chamber, but I will at least have set a pathway, a glide path for whoever follows me to connect the dots and really have an impact.
So tell us a little bit about the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce's priorities in regard to climate change and resiliency.
I brought it to the board after probably 4 years ago. Once I educated myself, I brought it to our board and I said, hey, guys, I'm seriously concerned about what we're not doing as it relates to climate change. And we need to make this as one of our strategic priorities moving forward, like we do for tourism, like we do for transportation solutions, like we do for workforce innovation. We need to have this one of our priorities. And so I've really been pushing hard to create a collaborative with the Southeast Florida Compact and all the regulators to position South Florida to be the epicenter for solutions. And that's really what my call to action is that we, through all of our relations, through all of our brain trust that we have here in South Florida, that we create the leverage to get worldwide talent to come in here and train us and bring new ideas, test new ideas, and have that. And we created the International Resiliency Conference and Convention, which was supposed to be in December, and COVID kind of screwed that up. But that's going to be a worldwide, multi-tiered convention and exposition where the best and brightest come to South Florida to talk about innovation and solutions.
Dan, how is South Florida's economy looking right now, and how will things like sea level rise and changing weather patterns affect it in the future?
The economy is on what I call bypass right now. It is a situation where we've been triaging from COVID, tourism being one of our largest employers, and it's on life support, but it's coming off. I mean, we're now on oxygen, I'll call it, and starting to breathe life back into our hospitality community. The rest of our professional services industry, our transportation sector, our construction sector never shut down. So that was really pulling us through. Real estate was pulling us through the pandemic, which is different than what happened in the Great Recession. The Great Recession, it was all tourism pulling us through. And this time, tourism tanked, and then construction and real estate pulled us through. And marine was huge. People don't know this unless you're in the industry, but marine sales, retrofitting, all of that in our shipyards and whatnot. That all has been a huge boost for us. And as you know, we had our International Boat Show that went off. We had more sales this year than I think we've had in the last several shows. So all in all, those two industries really pulled us through. And then, believe it or not, we don't look at it this way, healthcare. Healthcare has been very busy throughout COVID, and healthcare is a huge generator of revenues and jobs for our region. So that was another one. What was the second part of the question, Kevin?
The second part of that question was how will things like sea level rise and changing weather patterns affected in the future?
Well, if we do nothing, it will basically shut us down. So that's the risk. So that's why, what really got me was when I saw what the insurance estimators and actuarials were looking at for inaction and basically pricing us out of our future. We couldn't afford residential real estate because we couldn't insure it. We couldn't secure a 30-year fixed rate mortgage because it wasn't actuarially sound because there was no mitigation going on. So it's a very complex system that we have set up in the United States, and you can't work them independently. And so for our inactivity, that is why it's so important that we have mitigation impacts, whether it's, the flap valves or raising roads or whatever, the solutions will be down the road, some of which we don't even know what they are yet. But we have to get those in place.
Got it. So how are businesses in your area responding to climate change, and what are the most pressing concerns for those business owners?
Right now, I think they're in the they were in the denial phase. Now they're in the acceptance phase. And so we're working through that through education and awareness. Of course, what you guys are doing with the Invading Seas collaborative has been very helpful in giving it legitimacy. And I think overall what they're trying to do is, okay, what's the price tag on this? And because we can't afford all of it. And so where do we start? And I said, well, we've got to take one bite of the elephant at a time. We definitely have to have a restudy of our Central and South Florida flood control system so that we know exactly what we're looking at there. Unfortunately, we didn't make the Army Corps' work plan this year. So we're going to have to go figure that out. But in general, I would say that the construction industry is finally on board. They get it, at least the commercial real estate guys and gals. The transportation folks are trying to figure out cause and effect on road elevations with contiguous properties, what they did down in Miami Beach, how that affected the businesses. They raised the road and then the water goes into the businesses. Well, that was not a great scenario. So I think in general, there's acceptance, but the awareness factor, we have a lot more people to inform and educate.
So what are some possible solutions to these issues moving forward? And what do you think the Florida legislature can do to help?
Oh, well, I'll take the last part first. That we have to have an office of resiliency. I think the governor put that in his budget this year for this session. There has to be someone who's kind of steering the ship from a state level, securing federal funding, prioritizing all of the issues that we have in our flood control system, and helping to raise awareness. Those are all part and parcel. We had someone, we lost her pretty quickly. She wasn't here all that long. And then from our scheme, what I've asked for is, like we do in most of our business cases, we want to map out where the needs are, where we have the biggest issues. Case in point, when we had that torrential rain a few months back, I think we had 15 inches of rain in a very short period of time, and that's going to be more normalized as we're going forward. we saw where we had the breakdowns in the stormwater management system. We flooded communities, and so we know now that we have to go in with our stormwater plans, reevaluate those. We have a huge below ground infrastructure. City of Fort Lauderdale is a great example, with the broken pipes, with the capacity issues. So a lot of cities, Florida, Fort Lauderdale is 100 years old, a little over 100 years old. And those pipes went in, they're probably over 50 years old. So a lot of cities are going to be facing that as we move forward. So they're going to have to prioritize that because it's very expensive. So funding, we have to look at different ways of paying for this so that it's not all on the property tax. We're going to float bonds and all of that. There's lots of creative ways that we can get through it, but that's why cities need to have their house in order, so their bond rating will give them, preferential interest rates and whatnot. So I think that in a nutshell is the gist of it. Get your prioritization of the projects, what the value is, what the cost benefit value is, and then start to fund them and knock them off one at a time.
Dan, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.